Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Future Friday, we're going to talk about long-term solutions. So let's dive right into it. Now you have to understand that our world is going through a change. I mean like serious, absolute change. And humans are the primary reason behind it. Now, many times people have this illusion that humans are like, dumb robots. We are not. We are big, meaning in terms of not only things we can do, things we can affect, influence, all those are huge. And we are also complex, meaning it's rarely as simple as, oh, do this, get this. It's never as simple as that. We are ludicrously big, ludicrously complex creature, meaning there are logic and there are emotions, and both have to share the same room. It's very difficult there. So it's one of those things that you have to understand that it is very complex. What does that mean? That simply means we just became powerful, meaning if you take modern human, you roll back the clock to 50,000 years. Again, more or less the hardware wise, software wise, hardware and brainware wise will be more or less the same. But we were not powerful. We were like any wolf can be like, hey, that's my dinner. We could not do anything. Only difference is now we are like, wolf, I'm sorry, did not mean to make you extinct, but like, oops. So there's a difference. Like we just became powerful. From our evolutionary point of view, we are like, tada, modern humor barely stretches to like, a few thousand years ago, and we're like, we are already got tier powerful. So what does that mean? That simply means our action and inaction also has a real long-term impact. For example, if some people are taking action, let's say I'm going to build a dam, and some people are taking actions that we're not going to monitor things or do things, inaction, not doing anything, that will also have a huge impact on ecosystem, on whole planet. So that is very significant. We just became powerful, and our action and inaction are also becoming something very, very significant. And the biggest oops moment is that we are just realizing that now, is that our action and inactions also have this sort of consequences. Is rather recent achievement, meaning if you go back to, let's say, 1800s, nobody is like, if you like, I really liked one amazing YouTuber, Isaac Arthur. He specified a very simple thing. It's like, if you go to 1800s and you told to any village people, it's like, in future wolf would be like, going extinct, they were like, yeah, how soon can we do that? Again, because they were scared of wolves. We are like, oops. You get that point. Like we went from being scared, it's like, whoa, wolf, big bad wolf, have some people like trying to manage it, and God help you if you want to go like 10,000 years or 20,000 years ago, like how scared to death we were. Wolf, lion, and every other animals basically. But right now we don't care about it. It's like one wolf can cause minor damage, but we'll be like, bro, I'm sorry for you, but you gotta go, man, you gotta go. So that's the whole thing. We are just realizing that now, is that our oops moment or our indifference to some animal could literally translate to that animal going poof from existence. Done, go home, sweet dreams. That animal does not exist on the whole goddamn planet. That's how absolute we are becoming. So this is one of those things. And yes, humans have messed up, and many people look down and like, I really hate this attitude of like, humans just mess things up. And it's like, again, humans are saying that, so that's also odd. But like, humans are saying that, but like, I can't judge humans very badly, because once we became powerful, there was no alien coming down to us and gave us a manual, said how to run and manage a planet. There was no booklet handed out to me. At least it was not done to me. If it was done to you, good luck for you. But like, reality is, we humans have no guidance. It's like we are the first of our kind, first of our power level, and first of everything. It's like, how would you know? Like, how would you know what to do, what not to do? Because the only teacher that tells you what is right and what is wrong is goddamn time. And enough time has not passed for us. Like, we only became powerful enough where we can actually truly reliably exploit basically fossil fuel in large enough number. That's barely 200 years ago. Barely. Like, where we became good enough where we have command over electricity, that's barely 100 years ago. Became good enough where we have silicon technology, that's not even 50 years old. So let that sink in. Like, we just became this powerful, and we had no way of knowing. Like, again, flat out, somebody in like 1200s or like somebody in 1950s had no idea. It's like, oh, we're gonna figure out like diesel has an actual engine use. Again, they were not thinking what the heck is gonna do to that, because they had no idea, no context, no awareness of it. So only after a while we were like, wait a minute, we are putting it, what if we actually start to put too much? Because we weren't full. Our current population did not exist. Like, if you're gonna tell to anybody during basically early India, it's like, hey, India's gonna population would be 1.5 billion, everybody would have laughed at you. It's like, how the heck India is gonna feed them? Okay, we didn't figure it out. So reality is, we are just now becoming aware of that, the amount of god tier power that we are wielding, and we are doing a sloppy job of it. And the primary reason for that is evolution, because we did not evolve from a predator species. We are not from descendant of lion or basically crocodile or basically any superior species in terms of predator wise. We are always scared because we always have things that are above us in natural term, in terms of our DNA, in terms of our operating system. Our operating system takes fear very seriously, and the reason for that is because of our prey based mentality. We are the prey. Yeah, a wolf can simply say, tada, your kids are my dinner. It has happened, real thing. Snakes can say, nope, your life it ends. It has happened. It's one of those things that are ingrained into us. And from evolution's point of view, evolution is very sloppy simply because it has only two data points, pain and pleasure. That's all it does. So how the heck you expect something that is come out of pain and pleasure to know how to manage a goddamn planet? And we just became aware of like, oh, celestial sphere, how big that celestial sphere is. Like, oh, there is a moon that we can actually go to. There is a planet that we may able to go to. Like, this sort of things are very new to us. And nothing on this planet has long-term patience, meaning we're gonna plant some things and we're gonna yield it in hundreds of years in the future. That's not something that is normal. That's like only found in a human and only barely for one lifespan. Again, we do it, and people do that. Like, that's how we built religions, that's how we built basically civilization, that's how some buildings, infrastructure, that's how all those things are built, because people know, like, sometimes you have to put some effort down front, then yield the rewards. No animal can do that. That's why there are no other animals who have like space program. So reality is, things are changing. We are just becoming too powerful, and we are just realizing that our oops can have like serious oops. So this is one of the things that man has reached his final form, quote unquote. Now, how did we become this god tier powerful? Well, knowledge. That's the whole point of it. We became knowledgeable. How? Well, we created what we call storable data. That is one thing you have to understand. For example, let's say you have a dog. You teach a dog a lot of tricks throughout its, let's say, 15 years of lifespan. Now, here's, it cannot pass that down to a new puppy. It cannot be like, okay, it took me 15 years to learn all these things. I'm going to pass it down to you in 2 years. That's not gonna happen. That's the biggest problem with all animals in this planet. We can do that. Basically, it could have taken Einstein almost whole his lifespan to figure some things out, and we teach that in school kids. Like, this is equal times square. That's how it works. Tada. That's the whole point. It could have taken Stephen Hawking his whole life to crack something, and whatever he cracked out, now it's like school textbooks. Not school, I think I would say university level, but you get the point. Like, that knowledge can outlive its creator, and that is the biggest thing. Meaning, there is no death for us. Our knowledge is now immortal. Person is no longer affected. A person can start it, plant the seed, but over time it will grow without him, and that's the most amazing power of knowledge. Meaning, death cannot cause a recess. That will happen to every animal. For us, no, that's just an inconvenience. And if you stretch the clock long enough, it's like it does not even register. It's like, oh, this person started it. What happened after? You don't even think about it. It's like, yeah, some other students of him or like other people could have looked into it and processed it, refined it. That's a normal thing. That's normal for us. That's why you always know who invented something. You never know who refined it to be usable. So that's one of those things. And we kept building on it, then we kept some building more on it, and we kept building more on it. Reality is, we reached god tier. We did not realize it, but we reached god tier. And the 3 steps of it was language. That's the biggest thing. The fact that we can communicate on a written form, that changed everything. Before that, the biggest change happened to humans. That was just fire, that we can cook our food. Benefit of cooking our food, our brains become bigger. It's like, how the heck that happened? Well, if you cook your food basically takes 50 watts of energy to digest, for example, and it has, let's say, 50 watts of usable energy after that. But what if instead of digesting 50 watts, you only digest it in 25 watts? You get 25 watt extra. That's why you take a great ape to human, you will notice that our mouth sizes are getting smaller and our brains are getting bigger. Why? Fire. We started to cook our food started to break down. It's easier to our digestive system, healthier also, and tada, brain became big. But again, that was not too big of it. There are many species that almost achieve that, like sapiens kind of species achieve that. But the moment we reach language, that's like you apply nitrous boost. The moment you created basically this printing press, knowledge went from thousands of people to entirety of the population. That this is significant. This made even flooding, calamity, basically volcano, things of that nature will not be able to reset our data. Our knowledge will become basically undestroyable. Basically, it became, I don't care. You're like, your knowledge has spread so far, so wide, that no matter what you do, it will survive unless you blow up the planet. So far, we have not done that. So that's the whole thing. And life service without that knowledge, basically, let's say life will survive no matter what happens tomorrow. Let's say some big bad event happens, life will survive. There is no denying. Life is very robust by its DNA design. We are very solid, we are robustly built. We got this, never ever worry about that. Again, population number will go down, but we'll never have a scenario where it's like zero. That will not happen unless like something ludicrously hyper calamitical happens. We're not gonna go anywhere. However, our data must survive, because without our knowledge we will go back to animal kingdom without any fallback, quote unquote. We must preserve our knowledge. Yes, our knowledge does have the benefit that we can keep building on it, but we must also preserve it. That preservation part is very important. If that data knowledge is ever lost, we really have to go back to the old school and hope that next basically Newton Mark 2.0 happens. So this is one of the things. That's why our knowledge is so important. Now, how the heck we gonna store our data? Basically storage. A lot of people have figured out that we have created amazing storage technology known as electronic storage technology. They are amazing in terms of capacity, in terms of capability, in terms of access, amazing. However, all of that came with a consequence of longevity, meaning it does not last long. Fundamentally speaking, old book can have easily survived for hundreds of years, but our modern storage system will simply not last. However, humans being humans and being smart, we have figured out more than enough people, from more than enough rich people to enough colleges, universities to countries, are pouring their money into it, to figuring out a way of how to store that data. Now, the nature's best storage carrier has been figured out, DNA. Now we can store boatload of data in this, meaning whole of internet can be backed up, and it's gonna be barely gonna make barely any dent on anything. Basically, it's not like, oh, we're gonna have giant server farm. It's like, yeah, you have one box of DNA files, nothing more than that. So we can store boatload of information there. Then again, this is an active system. Inherently, radiation can corrupt it, damage it, or things of that. Again, fire and all that jazz. You need something bit more passive, something more robust, because these things have a side effect of that. If you read the DNA, you destroy the DNA. So you always have to clone the DNA before you read the DNA, so you never destroy the original data, or basically have some fail safes. So 5D glass storage has been created. Basically, this is a I have also made a video about it. It's just like somebody figured out that CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays, quad layer Blu-rays, all are generally two-dimensional. This is the first time somebody figured out we can make it in three-dimensional, meaning it's storing bits. Now that bits have multiple data points, meaning it has intensity, meaning the size of that voxel, and polarization, meaning that gives you two binary states, meaning 0, 1. So rather than just like, oh, it's now 0, now it's 1, now it's 0, now it's 0, now it's 1, that's how CD, DVD, everything works. This is like, no, this is 0, 1, this is 1, 0, this is 0, 0, this is 1, 1, and that's each voxel, and it has multiple layers of those voxels that are inside the glass crystals. And these glass crystals are very high grade. It's not soda lime glass, this is quality quartz glass, meaning you have to burn this puppy almost at like melting aluminum kind of temperature. Like some special varieties are being cracked right now that should survive for 1500 degrees Celsius, meaning even melting it would be very difficult. You will not have like, oops, that building set on fire, that data is lost. Like unless somebody actually tries melting this puppy bottom of rocket nozzle, it should not do anything to it. Now all these things are amazing, stores GG amounts of data, amazing, but it has a consequence. How the heck you gonna read that? Like I have talked about this, is like, even if a future alien species looks at our DNA, they can't understand it. It's like, how the heck you encrypted that data into it? Like how many segments are there? Like how many error corrections are there? Like again, you can brute force that, but good luck with that. And same here, because like if you look at in the microscope, you will find just, okay, there is a pattern, that's it, nothing more than you will be able to crack out. However, to solve that issue, we have Rosetta glass, basically Rosetta Stone project. Now this puppy is taking the same glass crystal and etching it. Now here's the deal, that etching process is done by same technology that we use to etch silicon, meaning the same puppy that we are using for making nanoscale structures in our semiconductor. Somebody figured out, rather than making nanoscale something, we make it macro scale, meaning something that you can see through a microscope. And I'm talking basic microscope, something that we had for last 500 years, not the latest current electron microscope that can look down to the atom, not something like, something basic, something you can find in school or right now in current mobile phone. This is like mobile phone photo. So the reality is, this disc, one disc, like it will be so small, and you can look down inside a microscope and you're gonna find entirety of books printed. And this is an analog medium. You do not need a fancy equipment to read this thing. That's the benefit of this. And if you look at it, like that's how they are storing all the languages. Because it gets smaller, you will always have like, is it really keep getting? You use even a basic microscope, like, wait a minute, it's going smaller. You find a better microscope, you're like, whoa, it's also getting smaller. At some point you will like, okay, all these things are not spots, they are pages. So that is the amazing aspect of this analog way can store all the data. It's like, what encoding method was stored here, what encoding schemes were used here, all that data can be stored in this disk. Disks are small, robust, reliable, and can be mass produced. Again, not as easily as books or CD or DVD. It is a bit expensive, but but again, more and more company are trying to put like whole of Wikipedia, whole of languages, meaning one of these disks should able to teach anybody any language, meaning all of the languages should be stored here. So these are amazing ways we can store our current and past reality forever, like ludicrously long time. Again, these things also have limit. For example, the elements half-life, same in DNA, same in this class. Again, if the elements half-life crosses a certain point, this will become garbled. So, but again, that is like in millions of years. So again, specific elements are chosen for that reason. So it does not just go poof, it lasts very long time. So storage wise, we are good, we are set. Like more than enough smart people are working more than hard enough. Then we come to another aspect, is like how the heck you're gonna know the time. And you know the time, for example, right now we can say it took us 30 years to make Large Hadron Collider. Again, from where? 30 years from where? Like for us is Gregorian calendar, like let's say AD and BC and all that. Just like all that data point assumes you have an accurate calendar. How the heck you will have a calendar if you don't have a clock? So that is one thing. Now time is a long system, meaning it's really long. Now we humans started with a very low lifespan of like 35 to 50 years. Now we are stretching this puppy to 120 years, and some people are gonna cross 150 very soon. So that sounds long, but against time, that's very short. The time is like, I'm so goddamn long. Gods have come and left, meaning gods became popular, that culture grew, that environment thrived, and then it got eroded from time. So that's one of those things you have to understand. If there is actual God, that is time itself. That is the significance of time. We must keep track of time, and time is a very big issue. It's like, think of this, I have this watch, which is a very good watch, and what happens if the battery dies? Again, I have lost time. You were like, okay, but can't you feed the data from another time? Yes, that's the issue. You must have a clock that is continuously running, or you must have, okay, this clock is about to die, you create a new clock that carries the time forward. We always have to keep carrying forward. It's almost like a marathon, where it's like it has to keep going continuously. The moment we stop, we will lose any data. So again, let's say in 10,000 years somebody finds out our data storage, and they're like, yeah, they're saying this is this year old, but how long is today? We do not know. Like it's 5 years from now, 5 years in the past, 50,000 years in the past, we do not know. And that carbon dating and all that, again, those are not precise systems. So how would you know? You have to build a clock that survives that long. So this is the clock for that, the clock of the long now. Basically Jeff Bezos' clock made by the foundation of the long now. Now this clock will be running, it has no battery power, no electronics, everything is specifically built so it can actually survive long enough. So it uses the energy from day and night cycle. You can watch my video for full detail, but the idea is this clock should in principle last 10,000 years, and it should keep time reliably on its own without human intervention. Let that sink in. There is no human intervention here. The energy is coming from day and night temperature changes, and it has a solar system where sun's basically light at a very specific point during the noon time will calibrate it. It's like, okay, now it's the noon because sun is doing that, and using that it will keep calibrating itself, so it will never lose a day, quote unquote. Again, this will not store second. It's not like, okay, 1 millisecond or something like that. No, it's just like today is the date. It will never slip the date. So it must be running, and to read that time you have like this giant cog, quote unquote. Basically you have 3 people who are like gonna move it around. It was buried inside a mountain. It's a very huge thing, amazingly huge. Like this whole system was scaled up to a size of a mountain, and that's the only way they could make sure that this could survive long enough. And again, if people forget about it, it will still keep working. If people find it and they figured out how to wind this up, it's gonna play a tune, and if they play the tune for 10,000 years, none of the tune will repeat because it has an analog computer that can create that many melodies. So it's amazing. This is one of the things that's like, yeah. And again, right now Jeff Bezos is the only one, but they have plans on building at least 4 or 5. And again, as many fundings as they're gonna get, they're gonna keep building it. They have built it in one spot, and then idea is have multiple of them. Hopefully 1 or 2 of them will survive in the long term. So that's the idea behind the clock. So we'll have data and we'll have time, so we can calibrate everything. So this whole video was triggered by this black box hype that is going around, and the idea behind this is a solar powered data vault, and it's supposed to keep all the environmental data, meaning the pH level, everything is related to environment that we are tracking from satellites and from sensors should be fed here, and it's going to store there. Now it's also going to store people's reaction, meaning Twitter, basically Facebook, Twitter and all. Basically it's going to take people's responses, like how people are responding to that data. It's going to store that. And the idea behind this puppy is, and the creator is saying that the purpose of this device is to provide an unbiased accounting of the events that led to the demise of the planet, hold accountability for future generations, and in this inspire urgent action. So that's the idea behind this. Now everything sounds good and all that, but I looked into it, and the more I looked into it, more I'm like, are you sure about this? Well, because The idea sounds good. It's like it has a vault, it stores all the data, but they realized if they actually started to store the data, because the amount of satellites, the amount of sensors we are adding to the planet, it will take boatload of data storage, and their estimation is like they're gonna run out of storage in 30 to 50 years. I'm like, that's not long. And they have never specified which exact medium they're gonna use, and given this size, I can only expect LTO tapes, nothing more. And again, optical disc tape would be Sony and Panasonic have developed a LTO tape variant for optical disc, which is far long-term stable because it's not magnetic, so it will not demagnetize those, so once you write the data on it, it should survive for hundreds of years. Again, I'm not sure, they have not specified what exactly they are doing in order to store that data. However, the more closely I look into it, the more I realize it cannot last long term. Again, it should survive for 50 years, 30 years, something like that, but it will not cross hundreds of years, simply because it has too much electronics into it. Electronics are not long term stable inherently, because electronics require some things like capacitors, resistors, and they require to be inside a set value. But because of the effect of time itself, capacitors drift, resistors drift, their value changes, and if you do that on a modern digital circuit, yeah, good luck, your circuit is poof. So reality is electronics cannot last long. Again, solar cells, they flat out degrade after 50 years, they will be flat out powerless. So this is one of those things I'm like, is it really gonna last for a very long time? Because electronics fundamentally cannot. And then you have the fact that it's exposed. It's not only exposed to the elements, it's not like, buried inside a mountain or somewhere. It's like nobody can touch it. It's like exposed. And it's like this angle is like to stop people from putting graffiti. I'm like, you are asking them to put graffiti if you have angles like that. And not to mention that angle puts a lot of strain on the structure because of the winds, and wind have the advantage of going for hundreds and thousands of years, and it can erode mountains. You really want to put like something edgy in air? Is like that's really bad design. And they are using steel, not even stainless steel. I'm like, steel, while it does have resiliency, it's not gonna last if it starts to rain very continuously. And again, if you're talking thousands of years, what is desert today may become a wetland tomorrow. So it's one of those things that I did not get, like, how the heck you are expecting solar cells to work, how the heck you are expecting somebody to retrieve the data, what medium you are using. And that is also another thing. It's like, because of the exposure and the fact that it's connected to the internet, that is really bad. Like, what if somebody puts some malware into that, which I can guarantee you more than 10,000 people would be trying to do that right now. So this is one of those things that it looks like more of a, like, I like the intent, but execution wise, it's like, really, it really does not look like you have put some serious amount of thought into it. Because if you did, you would have figured out, oh, this is how we are storing the data. Because that, even if you Rosetta disk, if all you are storing is snapshots of the internet as like a physical text image, you can store boatload of things. Again, it will require a bit of a very complex lithography setup to be inside it, so it can write the data and a microscope to read it. But you get that point. So this black box is one of those things where it's like more hype than, like, actually it can survive for 10,000 years. Really doubt it. Like, rain can easily erode this puppy. So 100-year lifespan I can expect. Thousands of years, no. And they have not provided any detail. Again, I do hope this is revision 1, and they actually start to build it. They go through all of data, refine it, fine tune it. Then I can expect some launch time. But right now, I do not expect this puppy to last any longer in their current configuration. Best case, 500 years. And again, at that point, the data, depending on what medium they are using, may not be readable or retrievable. Data could be there, but it may become unretrievable. So this was my presentation of long now, basically things that we are dealing in long terms. Hopefully that should have given you some hope that some people are working in long terms, long hundreds of years, not just like, how are we going to make our stock double in next 6 months. So hopefully this would have given you some hope, made you some happy. And if that is the case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike. Press it twice if you want to, or 3 times. You can leave a comment, because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free. And as always, thanks for watching.